in the freezing winter of 2025, as snow falls like an unrelenting veil over the streets of Moscow, the capital that has symbolized Russia's unyielding power for city finds itself plunged into a sudden and terrifying darkness that no one anticipated. It is December 30th, the eve of a new year that many Russians awaited with dreams of family celebrations, toasts under bright lights, and fireworks illuminating the night sky. But that night, the sky brings no joy, only a sinister and deadly hum. A massive swarm of Ukrainian drones, hundreds of lethal machines launched from the shadows of the conflict, converging on the very heart of the Russian Empire like an inexorable storm of vengeance. Everything begins in silence, as great catastrophes always do. Moscow, the city of the Kremlin's golden domes, wide avenues, and modern skyscrapers, buzzes with ordinary life, illuminated Christmas markets, families rushing for last-minute gifts, the metro packed with people bundled against the Siberian cold that already bites with sub-zero temperatures. No one imagines that, in that exact moment, from secret bases in Ukraine, the boldest operation to date is activated, a coordinated attack with long-range drones designed to evade advanced radars, programmed to strike critical infrastructure in the Moscow region. Ukrainian sources, though not confirming it officially, leak on social media that this is a symmetrical response, a brutal message after years of Russian bombings that left Ukrainian cities in ruins and millions without power during past winters. Russian air defenses spring into furious action. Explosions rumble across the horizon. Drone fragments fall like burning rain. The sky intermittently lights up with flashes from interceptor missiles. The governor of the Moscow region, Andrei Vorobyov, reports that at least 21 drones were downed in his area alone. And Mayor Sergei Sobyanin confirms massive interceptions. But not all fail. Some drones manage to penetrate the barriers, striking with surgical precision at electrical substations and key energy facilities. Suddenly, as if a giant switch had been flipped by an invisible hand, vast areas of the capital and its outskirts plunge into absolute blackness. Images captured by terrified citizens flood social media. Entire neighborhoods of Moscow transformed into ghostly silhouettes under the snow. Apartment towers that minutes ago shone like jewels, now dark tombs. Streets lit only by the erratic headlights of cars trapped in chaos. Pro-Ukrainian reports speak of up to 600,000 people affected, though Russian authorities downplay it, attributing some outages to technical failures at regional facilities. But the photos and videos don't lie. Towns like Zhukov, Litkarino, and Ramenskoye suffer massive interruptions, with over 100,000 homes initially without power, according to some estimates, and the number rising as the night deepens. The deadly cold of the Russian winter becomes the true enemy. Without central heating, without lights, families huddling under thick blankets, children crying in the dimness, the elderly shivering as temperatures plummet. On the streets, panic spreads like an invisible fire. Elevators stalled with people trapped inside for hours. Hospitals activating emergency generators to keep critical patients alive. Traffic lights out, causing collisions on slippery snow. Airports like Domodedovo or Sheremetyevo delaying flights amid the disorder. Residents describe the scene as the end of the world. An oppressive silence broken only by distant sirens and the howling wind. Total isolation in a metropolis of millions where suddenly nothing works. For the first time in this war, entering its fourth year, Muscovites feel firsthand the terror that Ukraine has endured repeatedly. The vulnerability of civilian life when infrastructure collapses under aerial attacks. This is no isolated incident. It is a dramatic and calculated escalation. Ukraine, bolstered by advances in its drone industry but effective machines capable of traveling hundreds of kilometers, responds to Russia's strategy of targeting its energy grid in previous winters, leaving millions of Ukrainians in darkness and cold. Now, they bring that same nightmare to Russian pride. Moscow, the invulnerable city, the symbol of Kremlin power, humiliated on its own soil. It is a devastating psychological blow. Beyond the limited material damage, one lightly injured reported. No initial fatalities because it cracks the narrative of superiority that the Russian government has maintained for years. In online forums and Telegram channels, Russian voices begin to whisper doubts. How much longer can we endure this in our own homes? While official propagandists promise imminent revenge, the context grows even tenser with parallel events. Just days earlier, Russia accused Ukraine of a supposed attack with 91 drones on Putin's residence in Valdai, an allegation without solid evidence that Ukraine dismisses as provocation to sabotage peace negotiations. But on December 30th, the focus is on real Moscow, not disputed claims. Ukraine demonstrates that distance no longer protects Russia. Its drones can reach the capital, bypass multi-million-dollar defenses, and cause chaos in the enemy's heart. It is a declaration of total asymmetric warfare, where the technologically weaker side strikes where it hurts most, reminding the world that this conflict, far from ending, intensifies with each season. As Russian emergency teams struggle to restore power under torrential snow, generators roar in the darkness, and mobile phone flashlights illuminate worried faces. The inevitable and ominous question arises, what comes next? Russia, with its contained fury, will it launch a massive retaliation on Kyiv or other Ukrainian cities right on New Year's Eve? Will it use this as pretext for larger mobilizations or more destructive weapons? Ukraine, privately euphoric over this operational success. Will it intensify its deep strikes, targeting more strategic objectives in Russian territory? The world watches with bated breath, Because this night of darkness over Moscow is not just a technical blackout. It is a harbinger of a spiral that could drag everyone into an even deeper abyss. The snow continues to fall, covering the traces of chaos, but the cold penetrates to the bone, reminding us that in this endless war, no one is safe. Moscow, the eternal city of lights, spends the night in profound shadows, a symbol of exposed fragility. Russian families, huddled in frozen homes, wonder if this is the price of a conflict their leadership started. While across the border, Ukraine sends a chilling message. Vengeance arrives, sooner or later, and strikes where least expected. The distant hum of drones echoes eternally in the night, announcing that the darkness could spread far beyond this fateful eve. War knows no holidays, forgives no weaknesses, and this time, it has touched the very soul of Russia, leaving a wound that will take time to heal. Imagine the impact on daily life. Stores closing prematurely, New Year's Eve dinners canceled, the metro operating with limitations, traffic collapsed at unlit intersections. In suburbs like Romanskoye, where the outage directly affects tens of thousands, residents resort to candles and portable stoves, reviving memories of eras past without modern comforts. The contrast is brutal. While in previous years, Moscow shone with festive decorations and the Kremlin palace gleamed, now vast areas turn into shadowed zones, evoking images of besieged cities in ancient wars. This attack highlights the evolution of modern warfare. Drones as the primary weapon, capable of carrying the conflict hundreds of kilometers from the front lines, democratizing terror and forcing superpowers to defend their own capitals. Ukraine, with its ingenuity and implicit international support in technology, has turned what was a disadvantage into a tactical advantage, striking Russian morale at its most sensitive point. Russian authorities, forced to admit massive interceptions, cannot fully hide Ukraine's partial success, as the blackouts speak for themselves. On controlled Russian social media, comments ranged from patriotic rage to contained frustration, with some users questioning why the special operation now brings direct consequences home. The Kremlin, master of narratives, will try to spin this as proof of Nazi Ukrainian aggression, justifying more recruitments and internal hardening. But the damage is done. For one night, Moscow has tasted the bitter flavor of the vulnerability it has imposed on Ukraine for years. Delving deeper into the consequences, the blackouts do not merely disrupt basic electricity supply. They also interrupt communications, electronic payment systems, and even the operation of ATMs, leaving many without access to cash right in the middle of the holiday season. Hospitals on the outskirts operate in emergency mode, prioritizing critical cases while postponing non-urgent surgeries. Public transportation suffers massive delays, with suburban trains halted and buses struggling through the darkness. Nearby airports temporarily suspend operations, disrupting end-of-year travel and stranding thousands. This logistical chaos amplifies the drama. Families separated, plans shattered, a collective feeling of helplessness in the face of an invisible enemy striking from the sky. On the strategic level, this Ukrainian strike marks a milestone. It demonstrates capacity for sustained deep operations, eroding the Russian perception of security and potentially influencing international negotiations. With peace talks underway, driven by external figures, Ukraine uses these blows to strengthen its position at the table, showing that it is not merely a victim but an actor capable of symmetrical retaliation. The Russian winter, traditionally an ally in historical defenses, now turns against its own people, intensifying civilian suffering and raising questions about the wisdom of prolonging the conflict. Dissenting voices, though silenced, gain private resonance. Is this price worth it for distant objectives? Meanwhile, in Ukraine, the operation is seen as poetic justice, a reminder of the countless blackouts imposed by Russia in previous winters. When millions froze in homes without heat, the asymmetry is clear. Ukraine, with limited resources, maximizes psychological and economic impact, targeting infrastructure that sustains Russia's war effort. Russia responds with partial denial and promises of reprisals. But the reality on Moscow's streets tells a different story. The war has come home, not as victory but as literal and metaphorical darkness. As the night progresses, repair crews work against the clock under flashlights and portable generators, gradually restoring sectors, yet fear lingers. Will another wave come? Muscovites, accustomed to imperial grandeur, confront a harsh reality similar to that of bombed Ukrainian cities. This event could catalyze internal changes, from heightened support for the war due to wounded nationalism to growing fatigue. Internationally, observers note how drone warfare is redefining modern conflicts, offering low-cost and high-impact. New Year's Eve, traditionally a time of hope, is tinged with uncertainty, fireworks postponed, celebrations muted, a people reflecting in the dim light about the path ahead. In summary, this night of December 30th, 2025, will be etched in memory as the moment Moscow fully felt the weight of the war. It initiated a somber reminder that actions have inevitable consequences. The darkness is not merely the absence of light, but a symbol of a stalemated conflict that devours both sides. with the merciless winter as its witness. As snow covers everything, erasing temporary traces, the psychological scars endure, feeding a cycle that only genuine diplomacy could break. But for now, in the frozen streets of the Russian capital, darkness reigns, accompanied by a silence that speaks volumes about the human cost of unchecked ambition. The war continues, inexorable, and this time, it has dimmed the very heart of Russian power, leaving open questions about how much more can be endured before light returns, not just electrical, but true peace.